Hello, everybody. Just give it a couple of minutes for people to arrive, and then I'll get started with this final webinar in the series. So bear with me while I do that. Okay, let's get going. Good afternoon. We are just about in the UK now. For everybody joining, thank you very much for joining this webinar number 6 in our series of 6 introducing ISO 27566. So this is the final one of the 6. So hopefully those of you that have seen them all will have built up to this point. But if you haven't, then they do all stand alone, and they are all available for playback on the Ring Central. You just need to register first for them, and then you'll be able to view the previous presentations. My plan today is to just run through what the certification process is, give a bit of a step-by-step guide. ISO 27566 itself is not a certification scheme. It is a standard, the framework for a standard. So in order to turn it from being something which is setting out a series of requirements to being something which can be certified, we have to write the certification layer. That certification layer is in accordance with another standard called ISO 17067, which is about how you write standards for testing products, processes, and services. And that enables that to be accredited certification. That all sounds very complex. I appreciate that it is quite complex from our perspective. It's much less complex from your perspective as relying parties or as age assurance providers. Basically, what that means is that's the way in which we can get here in the UK Accreditation Service to accredit the activities that we do for certification. So our existing accreditation covers ACCS 1 to 4. 2 and 3 relate to data protection, but 1 and 4 relate to the current standard, which is PAS 1296. That is being withdrawn and replaced with ISO 27566. And so we therefore have to upgrade the standard, the certification scheme. And one thing that if you click on the top right hand corner of the screen, you should see something that says docs, documents. We have uploaded the certification scheme into those documents there. We've also sent them out to all of our clients today as part of our release of this information, and you can download them there and review them at your leisure. As I go through, I'll also be referring to how we're doing this as a certification scheme, and there's some other resources that are available as well, which may be of assistance. But let me just get started with the presentation. So the first really important thing for certification is to scope the system. Scoping is done in a pre-application phase. So it's done between our team, OBI in particular, and the client to just explore exactly what type of service you are and what you're providing. The age assurance standard is a framework, so it's intended to cover literally any type or any approach to age assurance. You don't have to be certified to do something that you don't do in order to get to 7566 certification. You're only certified for the things that you do. So it is a process of just understanding what your system is. So there are a number of aspects to that. So you've got, first of all, what you are. So you could be an age assurance provider, and that is somebody who actually does the calculation, does the delivery of the result of an age assurance check. You could be a relying party. That's effectively the organization that uses the age assurance check. Or you could be an intermediary, someone who sits either between those two, or between the age assurance provider and the user, or between them and, for instance, a bank or a credit reference agency. There's a whole host of intermediaries. Any of those three can be certified, and any of them are also eligible for different bits of certification. So we look at that, and we look at the particular context of use that they are applied to. So are you doing it online or offline? Are you doing it for retail, for hospitality, for gambling, for adult entertainment, for social media, for tattooing? There is a whole host of reasons why you might be doing age assurance. You don't have to do them all. You can focus in on the markets that you are active in. We need to understand the level of confidence that's required. So do you have to deliver highly effective, just effective, or basic, or strict age assurance? That depends on the regulatory requirements that may apply. So, for instance, if you're in the UK and you're doing Ofcom's requirements for Part 5 of the Online Safety Act, you have to provide highly effective age assurance. You can't just provide a basic system. You also need to look at where you're providing it. So are you providing it just in the UK, just in Europe, just in Singapore? Again, it's a global standard, so you can look at your where you're providing it. One of the things that we have done in relation to this is look at providing a lot of information online. So let me just bring up a link for you into the chat. So we have a page on our website, which I will put into the chat now, which describes all of the approach to certification, what's involved in certification, what's expected of you. And then we also have a second page on there, which enables you to do your own calculation of the amount of audit effort. And this tool will do two things. It will tell you the amount of audit effort that's required on our side by the certification body, and the amount of effort that's required on your side. So roughly how many days of activity you're going to need somebody to participate in an audit. Usually that's much lower than it is for us. Ours is higher. And that's because a lot of what we audit might be, we get some information from you and we have to spend our time going through and checking that, checking privacy policies, checking approaches to privacy, etc. And we don't need you to be present for that aspect of the testing. So that tool there will enable you to be able to calculate the amount of audit effort. When you use that tool, if you're an existing client, do get in touch, because there are a number of things that we can take into account for being a existing client. And also, if you are things like, for instance, if you're members of the age and other potential discounts as well. So although it'll help you, give you a tool in terms of the number of days, in terms of the actual cost, just get in touch with the team here, and they will work that through with you. Obi in particular will work that through with you. So let me just get back to this. So what happens? So you get your certification started. You're ready to go. What happens? Well, we start with what we call stage one, but it is in fact a documentation review. So we collect information about you and what you're doing, what information you're collecting, what ID documents you're collecting, just all of your kind of policies that are relevant to the things under analysis. So you've got your, for instance, your practice statement. And the practice statement is the most critical thing that you produce for this purpose. And again, we've got a tool that will help you to build and develop that practice statement. You can use it if you want to, you don't have to. We've got to look at things like your privacy policy, your information security policy, information about your relationships or your contacts or your providers or your intermediaries that are part of the ecosystem that you're responsible for. The boundaries of that ecosystem, what's your responsibility and what is somebody else's responsibility. Things like your configuration management plan. So that is what can be changed within your system and who can change it and who's got authorizations to do that. We also have to carry out a number of checks as well on you as the applicant. Things like sanctions checks, politically exposed persons checks, anything relating to any previous issues with data protection security. We have to check those things out, and we have to make sure that we're dealing with a bona fide company and all of that. That's all part of our stage one. The other thing we do in stage one is we prepare for the testing phase. So there isn't a single way that we go about testing. So it isn't in the old system that used to be like, well, we'll show it 300 of this or 1,000 of this, and that's how we assess it. That is not the way that 27566 works. It is based on selecting an appropriate test mechanism from the 29155 series of standards to apply to that particular component or use case. Now, you may well have already had that tested. So, for instance, your liveness detection may have already been tested by iBeta or Bixby Labs or whoever it is that you use for that. We can take that into account. We can rely on those if it comes from a reliable, trusted, accredited conformity assessment body. We also look at how we might test using different methods. It isn't necessarily the case that you have to show it like 300 things, because it might be that if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's a binary test. So we will look at exploring different things. So there isn't a fixed way of doing the testing, but there is a requirement that we work with you and identify what that testing may be. We also do the component and context selection at this stage as well. So this is where we look at which components there are. So your system may well do age verification, ID scan, biometrics. It may do age estimation. It may do age inference. It may do email lookup. It may do credit. There's a plethora of things it could do. And what we will do is we will work on selecting the test tools for that and control that. What we're looking at is obtaining information about the classification accuracy of the system. So how likely is it to get the result correct? And then what we do with your the stage one, the policies and procedures, is we test those and we apply audit to those to make sure that they're actually what's in place, so that the system that you have will actually do what you say it does, and the controls that are in place are appropriate and correct. And all of this is against the 5 core characteristics in 27566, which are the functionality of the system, the performance of it, the privacy controls, the security controls, and the acceptability controls. They're all laid out in that in the standard. We then move on to evaluation review. So after the auditor has completed all the work and the testing has been done, a second auditor, or we call them a certification officer, will review what's done and go back and check that everything has been done properly and correctly, and compare the applicable, and make a final certifications with the thresholds that are applicable. And then certification process, you have an auditor and a test analyst, and a scientist that does all of the kind of work, and then you have a separate person who carries out a technical review of that to make sure that we've covered everything that needs to be covered. We then make a decision. Our decision is based on the stated claim of your system's capability in the practice statement and how that meets the 5 core criteria. And our decision to grant certification or not is based upon that. If we decide that there is insufficient evidence of conformity to be able to grant certification, we don't refuse certification. We simply come back to you and say you'll need to gather more evidence or more material, or you'll need to look at this, or you may have some findings, some audit findings, some what we call NCs, non-conformities, that you need to address before we're able to make a certification decision. But once the certification decision is made, you will receive a certificate, and the certificate is broken into your core certificate, which is just basically a one-pager describing your system and who you are, and then a schedule of certification. And the schedule will describe the scope of certification that you've undertaken, so what was included. And again, that's you determine that, you decide what is in there, the jurisdictions that have been tested, and the context of use. One of my tips for doing this is when you look at certification, it's often very tempting to go, oh, we'll just go for everything and global. And that might give you the biggest system or scheme that you could possibly have, and certification for it. The problem with that is it's a bit of an audit trap, because what if you go for everything and global, what you will have to demonstrate is how your system will work in every single global jurisdiction that there are requirements for. That could include a country like Bhutan, for instance. Now, you may not do any business in Bhutan. You might not have any clients in Bhutan. You might not be ready to service a market in Bhutan. But if you tick that on your application, we have to check that you're capable of doing that. And that is across the world. So you'll find that it's actually quite a lot to do if you go for global straight away. One of the things that we strongly recommend is that you focus on your initial certification. You focus in on exactly what you do and where you do it now, and where you are comfortable in the marketplace and you understand the client needs and the client marketplace. You can always extend that further, and I'll come on to adding components and post certification shortly. But you can always extend it further if you want to. So we issue that certification. You will also be added to our registry, which is an online database of all of the certifications that we have provided. And we will provide you with logos to use on your website, certification mark, materials, how you describe it, and support for how you use that certification as part of your marketing activity. Sorry. You can at any time during your certification lasts for 3 years, by the way. So from when you get it to when it needs to be renewed, it lasts for 3 years. We carry out an annual surveillance audit just to check in and see where you're up to and what you're doing. You can at any time during that 3-year period, you can add a new component. So you might have come along and done certification for face age estimation, and you decide you also want to do ID document checks, and you either bolt in the equipment or you do the coding to do that. You can just add that on. You don't have to recertify the whole system. You just add that component on. It might be a day or two just to add that component in. You can also expand your your level of confidence. So if you went in and you got certified for basic, and then you decide you want to do highly effective, you can then you only have to change that aspect of it, and a short audit for that additional requirement or level of confidence. You can also have different levels of confidence for different components. So you could have some components that operate at highly effective, and some that operate at just at basic level. They don't all have to be highly effective in order to be certified as a system as being capable of being highly effective. So you can mix and match around that. You can add in more jurisdictions. So you could start, for instance, with, well, we're just going to cover Florida and the requirements in Florida, and then add in, well, let's do New York and Louisiana and the other states, and just add a couple of additional states on, or the whole of the US. Or you could say, right, we've now developed our system in the US and it's all good there. We now want to supply it in the European Union or in the UK. So you can add on the whole of the European block as an add-on. Or you could say we're ready to go global, and you can add on global as an add-on. These are all the whole scheme is designed to be completely modular, so that you can literally just do certification for one thing in one place in one context, and just add in more context, more places, more things to your overall system. A bit about what to expect on the timelines and costs and evidence. I have put a link into the chat which covers the calculation. You'll see the questions that we ask as you go through that calculation. Only about half a dozen questions. And you can adjust that and tailor that to your particular needs. The key thing is about knowing where you want to operate, the context you want to operate in, and the number of components there are within your system. So, and if you need any help with that, just reach out and we can happily assist you with working your way through that calculation. It's also, when you get to the end, you can reset it and go again. So you can look at what if you make certain changes, what impact that would have on the overall amount of audit effort. It doesn't give you a price. That's because you need to contact us in relation to your pricing. And pricing, as I say, there can be discounts available for certain things. So do get in touch about the pricing. In terms of timelines, theoretically, I would say it's possible to go through certification within a couple of weeks. Realistically, it's a couple of months. And the reason why I say it's a couple of months, that's not 2 months of solid audit and work. It's gaps in between, because normally during this process, there's a bit of a gap between stage 1 and stage 2. Normally, if we find things as we're going along, we give you an opportunity and chance to put those right before you proceed. And so, just in our experience, and realistically, you'll find it takes a couple of months. I think the quickest we've seen it done is in about 3 weeks, and typically 8 to 12 weeks. And the slowest that we've seen it done is probably 6 to 8 months or something like that. Very much dependent on your state of readiness and what you do. In terms of getting started, there is a bit of a rush on at the moment, as you can imagine, with this being a new certification and it being global. We've got the first dozen or so that are working their way through various parts of the process. But we have capacity to be able to do these relatively quickly. I would say at the minute, expect a delay of about 2 or 3 weeks to get started with it. If you were to sign your contract today, for instance, I think it will probably be mid-November before we would start the actual audit process. And the costs are very much dependent on the system complexity, the components, and the rates that we charge. And I say there are various discounts available, so do get in touch with OB about what they may be for you. Once you've got your certification, there are some ongoing obligations. So first of all, we will monitor the performance of the system to ensure that the standards are maintained. We also have tools that are available that would enable continuous monitoring of it actually being used. And that is part of our work with things like, for instance, the payment card industry. So if you have a requirement for age assurance, we have tools that would enable payment card service providers to be assured that the age assurance system was in use and continuing to be used. Also, other network operators that we work with, where we're doing continuous verification activity. There is an obligation on you to report incidents and errors and breaches to regulators as well as to us. So we will also keep an eye on what's going on in the press and on social channels. If we come across things, we may well get in touch with you. We may well spot things during our routine monitoring, which we will report back to you. And that can be an early indication that something isn't right or something isn't working as you intended it to. If there is a breach, that doesn't automatically mean that your certification is withdrawn or suspended, but we do have to look into that and to investigate what has gone on there. Of course, if you are operating to the certification scheme requirements and to ISO 27566, the likelihood of there being a data breach ought to be significantly lower. Not least of which because we'd be looking at what you're keeping, why you're keeping it, where you're keeping it, how secure it is, and why you're not getting rid of it as quickly as possible as part of the certification process. So we tend to find that our clients and the people who operate according to our client systems are significantly lower risk for data breaches than, shall we say, some others that are out there. You're also required to apply any updates or improvements to maintain compliance. The regulators will regularly change, update their materials, their requirements. If they do that, we'll be in touch with you and say, you're registered and you're certified to operate here within the UK. Ofcom or ICO or trading standards or whoever have issued some new guidance, you're going to need to respond to that guidance, and we would test for that. There's retesting and audits. So we will carry out an annual surveillance audit within plus or minus 30 days of your initial audit. And that's through the course of the 3-year certification cycle. At the end of the certification cycle, you're required to recertify. Recertification is not quite as big as the initial certification. It tends to be around about 2/3 of the level of activity. But nevertheless, we would have to go through that on the 3-year anniversary. Keep documentation. By keep documentation, we don't mean keep original copies of ID. We mean documentation in relation to your systems and procedures. Look at how you do your user handling practices and keep those up to date. We will look at your policies and procedures for all of this. One of the things that is quite critical when you're dealing with agile development and developers in general is when you make a policy decision about something, make sure you make a note of it, because developers will go, well, yeah, we decided that we're not going to do this, but I can't remember why we decided we're not going to do it, and I can't remember who decided, and I can't remember when it was decided. And that is a bit of an audit flaw in that, if you have decided that you are going to, for instance, have an on-device solution for your age assurance system rather than a server-based solution, that's great, and that will, help with meeting compliance. But you need to record how you made that decision, who made it, and on what basis you made it. So just keep records of your decision making when you're developing things. Then it's about turning that certification into market differentiation. You will get from us support with that. You will get listed on our website. You can also apply to be listed on the IEEE registry as well. There's an additional cost that IEEE charge for that. You would also be potentially on other websites with your certification status. We know, for instance, that the Age Verification Providers Association differentiate between certified and uncertified providers of their members of their association. You will get logos and certification marks that you can use on your web pages, and other support and information about how you can describe your certification. You will stand out from your competitors, particularly with a new scheme like this. The first early adopters are the ones that are going to benefit the most from that global certification. Bear in mind that one of the big drivers for the ISO 27566 was the relying and accepting party community. What they want to be able to do is to ask simple questions in their procurement processes. But what you will find, and in fact you will already find, and many already find this, you will be asked, what is the certification status of your solution, who certified it, and what's it been certified against? And you'll start to see ISO 27566 being the benchmark that relying parties will have as almost a prerequisite to them even talking to you about buying your solution from you. That is typically what happens with standards globally. It's what we would expect to see. So you've got to be using your certification as a selling point for your risk-sensitive clients, and you keeping in touch with the news, keeping in touch with what's going on. You will see more and more of this. Indeed, yesterday we made a statement in relation to a data breach by Discord, which actually was nothing to do with our certified client. But we made that very clear, and we will always back you up if you comply with and continue to adhere to the certification requirements and the standard. We will back that up. So that's a kind of step-by-step guide to it all. I shall go back to the Q&A and do put any questions you've got in the Q&A. Just got a note here saying the camera keeps freezing and the audio keeps dropping out. Hopefully you caught everything that I said there. If you've got any questions, then do just get in touch and I'm happy to answer those questions. What I would say is that I have also put on the chat there links to the webpage and links to that audit calculator tool, which will really help you to understand what's involved in applying for certification for this. But I'm not seeing any questions, so I think I will end this webinar at this point, and look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you.